because it's the silly, stupid, fascinating, weird, wonderful. They're my people, and more often than not, they're the geeky people as well.
I mentioned Betamax. For anybody older, that's the old version of a video cassette. Video cassette is an old version of a DVD. A DVD is not set on the cloud.
Good evening, folks.
Hello, and welcome to Faith
welcome.
and Geekery. And we're overlapping.
I was slightly nervous because we're using a new feature of automatic playing videos, and I was not sure how it was going to automatically play. So welcome if you are watching us live, listening to us a little bit later, or playing catch up in any other way, or listening to us to try and drown out the noise of the wider world. So welcome to another episode of Faith and Geekery. And again, we are really used to this this spiel, the conversation, and we've dried up already with only 30 seconds in. Good evening. We are not alone. We've been joined by Tim.
You are Mark. We are.
What?
Yeah.
This is a little bit awkward.
Right. You your name.
Oh, okay. Oh, hi, I'm Mark, and this is. No? Okay, right.
Becca!
Wow, blimey. So we're doing well.
Is it always this good?
No, it's really better. No, good evening, folks, and welcome. So what geeky things have you been up to since we have last gathered? As the titles run, I'm warming up my fingers for lots of fast typing. Oh, welcome, Tom.
Love a bit of fast typing.
Have you been up to anything geeky, you two, or folks that are tuning in? Becca nods. Wow.
Oh,
okay.
That was a direct question to me, wasn't it? It's because I was clicking the buttons. I had two things to do. Becca, you do the welcome, and Becca click the buttons. So that's what I was doing.
And so I'm sorry because I forgot that you were doing the welcome.
Yes, I know. That's what threw me. I have been geeky in my garden, if that counts. We say it counts. I got new technology, a new toy this week that is very fancy. I did a suitable amount of what is the best hedge trimmer that you can get, and then did a lot of research about where is the best place you can buy the best hedge trimmer, and then I got one. So I can now go and trim a very, very perfectly beautiful line in my hedges.
Very good. I was going to say you've actually shared some pictures.
More excited about my
so, well, all I was going to say is that we've got photos because they'll be in the Geeky Gallery a little bit later. I've been to the Leeds Armouries, and so I've seen lots of weapons and otherwise. So that's very cool, and that might also have a little bit of a glimpse of things later on as well. What else have I been doing? I've been doing other various bits. I've been doing some augmented reality stuff and 3D kind of character building, literally 3D character. No, not literally, but yeah, character building of a 3D nature, not just in myself. And how about you, Tim? What have you been up to?
One of the things I'm a bit geeky about is poetry, and I was in a NPNP meeting yesterday, which is a shout out for Methodisty people everywhere, which effectively just for the last sort of 45 minutes or so just became a series of soliloquies about T.S. Eliot's 4 quartets, which was right up my alley in terms of how not to do work or indeed church work, but just talk about poetry, which was probably good church work anyway. But yes, that was good geeking. And I think it was last week, but it might have been the week before that I took it was in fact a Tuesday night, so it's slightly blasphemous to do it on a Tuesday night instead of tuning into Faith and Geekery. But I took a Tuesday night to myself and watched a 2-hour lecture by a chap called John Garth on the history of Middle Earth, which may or may not be relevant to this evening's theme. But it was very lovely.
That's very cool.
Are you going to condense that down into 30 minutes, Tim?
I shall try to, yes.
Welcome to Tim's TED Talk on Middle Earth. So, folks, what else have we been up to on the chat? There's a few little bits and pieces. Lego. Thomas just mentioned Lego. Am I bringing up the comments, Becca, by the way? Or are you bringing up the comments? Becca seems to have slowed down.
Yes, Becca's moving at one frame per minute.
Oh, good. Sorry, folks, for those on podcast. Becca is catching up. Maybe catching up. I'm just going to take over.
Caught up. There we go. I don't know what's happening.
Wow,
Yeah,
awkward.
sorry.
Maybe this is Are you controlling comments as well, Becca, or are you just doing banners?
Well, I was trying to, but my internet just absolutely froze up. So I don't know. Don't know why. So if you want to do comments in the meantime until I
thought you just stopped again. Oh, okay. On the geekiness, I have ordered the new Lego Winter Village sets for the annual display, backed a card-based RPG Kickstarter, and downloaded the annual Oramus lectionary database into my digital calendar. Oh, very cool. Lego-wise, yes, I've almost finished my D&D Lego minifigure collection.
That's impressive.
I just have one left to get.
Who are you missing, Mark?
I think it is Vecna. So the red chappy, I think it's Vecna anyway, with the flaming skull. So that is the only one left, and they are now pride of position on top of our TV. I don't know why I had to demonstrate that. Just doing a little line because it's a line, as well as what else is there? Oh yeah, Gareth has been to the Northeast Board Game Expo.
Oh, nice.
He's also shared a photo on there as well. So we're going to share that later too. Yeah, Tim, thank you. Yes, I know exactly what I need to get. I just was so busy and juggling kids on Saturday following the Leeds Armoury that I was just like, oh, you know what, I'll just get to these and I'll spend some other time just going through and finding the right one I want without the hassle of the delight of my children to guide me in that. So I will find them. I will find it. But I was in two minds whether to get these characters anyway, but I've enjoyed that. And I'm sure there's something else that I've been up to. I'm sure I'll kind of go aha a bit later on. I have also been working on my cosplay costume, or ordering bits for my cosplay costume for Leeds Comic Con as well. London even Comic Con. I'll get
London,
there in the end.
Bigger than Leeds.
It got steadily further south as you went on. Leeds, Lincoln, London. Nice.
It is the way.
What's the costume, or is that a big reveal?
That's a big reveal. But,
okay.
I've got some handy bits and some eye bits. So that'll be
interesting.
Okay. How goes your cosplay, Becca?
I've got a shopping cart full of stuff that I need to purchase, and once we have this event this weekend out of the way, I shall allow myself to then purchase things.
Fantastic.
Fine.
Fantastic.
It's all going to work out well.
So, shall we move on to geeky news? So 3, 2, 1. So we have some geeky news this week, and I think at the end of the last week we had the sad news that Dame Maggie Smith had died. I think one of her most famous roles is Professor McGonagall from the Harry Potter series. I guess obituaries seem to be kind of getting quite a lot of, I think I've said this before, but it does feel that we're in this kind of age where kind of TV and film celebrities, we're just kind of, because it became more popular, we've kind of got a lot of folks that are just passing away. It just seems to be a popular time because we've got a very large continuation of stars and celebrities over the years. John Ashton, I don't know if you know him, he's most famous, I think, for in Beverly Hills Cop as Chief John Taggart, as well as Chris Christopherson. I've put Whistler here, from the Blade series, but he's also like a musician, actor, all-round nice bloke. He passed away too. I say all-round nice bloke. I've never met him. Other news, Peaky Blinders film is in promotion. I thought I'd mention Bridgerton Ball. Have you heard about Bridgerton Ball? Basically, it's a bit like the Wonka experience in Glasgow that failed abysmally. No. And I think it was in New York that people were like going, I have the Bridgerton experience. So everyone was like, this is fantastic, excellent, brilliant. And then basically turned up and it was awful. And there was like really undercooked food, and it was just like an A-level kind of students' dinner sort of thing. And there was even a stripper, and it's just like, sorry, what? Where does that fit into the anyway? So that was a really kind of cringy and just awful, and you felt for people who had really kind of gone to town in these big kind of ballroom dresses and just turned up to a hotel foyer sort of kind of function room experience, which was just very cringy. And I mentioned something here because there's conversations about Paramount Studios merging with Skydance, but productions, but there's this kind of big thing happening across like kind of Hollywood and things where we've kind of got these big traditional large kind of studios really kind of coming a cropper and kind of having to compete with the likes of Netflix and things, but also kind of it feels like the golden age of Hollywood is kind of coming crashing to an end, and it'll just be very interesting to see kind of how that rides out in regards to films, to studios, to kind of that whole kind of the whole engine of kind of entertainment and kind of film watching and dare I even say cinema. I just have a feeling that this is kind of moving us into unknown territory about entertainment, but this is just yet one of the recent things, because I think we're also kind of seeing studios dropping a load of people. I think they dropped down a quarter of their staff at Paramount Studios, but I think this is happening across the board, is that the money is no longer in these big kind of films in the big filming industry, or rather they've got to really kind of invest really carefully, or otherwise they're going to drop out very quickly. And it's just something that I just find is very worrying regarding the film industry, but at the same time, is it just a sign of kind of online streaming and things like that? So it's just very intriguing. So Tim's put, some might say that these studio mergers, the dawning of the end of an age. Is that I feel as if is that a quote from something?
It sounds like it, doesn't it?
Yes.
You can't help it. He's gone into Lord of the Rings language. It's just
yes, I think it has
flowing out of his mouth.
It's that the age of the orc has come. Possibly.
So, yes. So yes. Sorry if that went above my head. Anything?
Quite a lot of it might tonight, Mark.
I have confessions to make later. Talking Studios had an interesting thing on the Resties entertainment podcast that nowadays they make a large amount of money through theatre musicals. Oh yeah, like the kind of live things, like the I've definitely seen Billy Elliot live broadcast, live kind of streamed to kind of venues and bits and pieces. I think cinemas are just having to think more creatively as people. You don't get kind of, unless it's a big release, you don't get the footfall coming through, and I've got to put my hand up. There are times when I kind of go, can I be bothered to watch this at cinema, or will I wait a few months and catch it in the comfort of my own home on a streaming service, which is kind of a
But then that's why it's more about the experience. So I went to the theatre, the cinema, but it felt like a theatre experience. You could order food from your seat. It was full waiter service. Your seat was actually a couch with a footrest and place to put your shoes. So really thinking about how you expand the experience.
Yeah, and Tim's put here about the gaming studios as well. I think this is very much the case, is that we've got these big industries having to play catch up and sort of say, well, actually, if people are no longer kind of enjoying this kind of big blockbuster moment, whether film or kind of games, then it's much more about the independent stuff. Or people aren't going to be waiting 5 years for a big release of, well, some people will, but I think the majority of society are not going to wait like 4 years for a big bold development of a game that might just appear on one platform. I think, again, I'm showing my age, but I remember the PlayStation and PlayStation 2 where you'd have a number of kind of games released on the one console, and then it kind of moved into PlayStation 3 where it was just like you're going to have one version of that game released, and that feels as if that's just it now, is that you have the next kind of reiteration of that game on the next platform, and you might be able to get 1 or 2 reiterations out of it, but by and large it's just kind of reworking or just adding slightly different content. But Thomas also put the amount of money Wicked makes is huge, much of which is the studio that owns the Oz rights. Then there's all the film-based musicals. Absolutely. What's this also? Currently, we basically from games have either AAA games or indies. PS2 made the development kit open source, so many people just make a game and earn profit. Quite. So yes, and Gareth says that they even release games when it's not even finished. Yeah, what's that about nowadays? We're nearly there. Yes. So shall we move on from that and move to, unless there's any other comments about geeky news or if there's anything I've overlooked?
I think just how nice it is to.
What if it's good?
Oh no, go on, Becca.
Sorry, Tom, carry on. What if it's good that a political shift? Sorry, this is my internet. That instead of a small number of people holding a monopoly, that actually it's a much broader, larger number of people making money from a similar thing. So it used to be that a few studios held a huge amount of power. Now, especially where you have things like open source stuff, you've suddenly given more power to more people to be part of the whole process. You don't make as much money, but people can make a living from it. So you don't become uber rich, but you can earn a wage. And for me, that's a much more comfortable political place for us to be, rather than having a monopoly of a few. You've got more people having access, and then it becomes really beautiful.
I think the stretch on that is that when you've got kind of cities and whole kind of industries that are built around the old model, then they're going to feel that pain. And just like I'm going to compare it really randomly to like living on the East Coast, where people stopped coming to the seaside resorts, and so you have these kind of big places that were designed for beach time entertainment of the 1950s, and actually the people have gone elsewhere, and so therefore you have this kind of the shadows and the aching of an industry that once was thriving, but people have gone elsewhere, tourists have moved on, and it's understandable, but it's going to impact these communities and these industries, and I think if you knew that, you kind of I guess it's about change, isn't it? And about as culture changes, as our thirst or need for things change, and so do, unfortunately, it has an impact on the industry or industries.
So what you're saying is Hollywood is the new Bridlington? Is that the take?
Yes, I am. Also Hornsey.
Oh, little old Hornsey.
Yeah.
Superheroes no longer.
Sorry.
Oh, great!
Sorry.
So we can have a new podcast about superheroes.
I didn't realise superhero was ever traded, Mark. But anyway, that's very good to know. So, shall we move on to our quiz? Have you got pens and papers ready? And folks, just a reminder, because I feel as if this happened last week, don't put your answers in the comments because that might help people to cheat. Even though I was on the receiving end of that last week. Don't do it, please. So are we ready with pens, paper, with some questions ready? Oh, there's a deep intake of breath from Tim. Oh, dear me. Why am I here? Heck, I remember playing that back in the day, but I struggled to get. Oh, yeah. Ooh.
It's just always a space I come to discover how bad a geek I am, really.
So these are broad and wide. Question number 1 is, what is a chirosophilist? I'm going to spell this out. CHRYSOPHILIST. Chirosophila. Yeah, I'm going to write it out. Let's just write it in here so we can see it. And it's somebody who loves something, by the way. It's the specific, what does it love? That's your hint, because I'm nice like that. I've just written it up in the comments just so you can see it typed out. How would you pronounce that? Chirosophilist.
Chirosophilist. Chirosophilist.
Yeah.
Chrysophilist.
So what is that?
Okay.
A lover of something. Question number 2.
Jesus.
Is that just no? Okay. Question
I
number
was
2
going
is
to
what
sing
is
the whole lover of my tongue.
Oh, okay. What is Frodo's sword called? So question number 2, what is Frodo's sword called?
Thanks, Mark.
That was a kind one.
Then question number 3, which UK county celebrates its day today on 1st of October? So which UK county celebrates its day on the 1st of October? Tim has put, is it a sword or a butter knife? Again, I'm assuming that's a Lord of the Rings quote. You could get away with anything, Tim, and I'll nod along and go, oh, yeah.
Good one.
Question number 4. This is another one that relates to today. On this day in 1982, Sony released what in Japan? So on this day, the 1st of October, 1982, Sony released what in Japan? And just to let you know that they released whatever this was in 1983 in March in the UK. I don't know if that helps or hinders, but... And finally, shall I move on to question number 5? What are the world's only true flying mammals? What are the world's only true flying mammals? As in, what properly fly, rather than just like glide.
Flying. The first 2 times I heard lying, I was like, I don't know why this is relevant.
Flying. Foxtrot, Lima, Yankee, Indigo, November, Golf.
Thank you.
I was trying to remember my phonetic alphabet. That should be another quiz question for another time.
Yes.
Gareth has put people on EasyJet. Again, don't put the answers. Oh, Becca's gone again.
Becca's gone entirely this time.
Oh no, we've offended her. Well, I guess we should maybe wait a moment.
Bet she doesn't know that it's bats, but that's why she was looking up.
So, Tim has helped you there for anybody who is tuning in. So let's.
Or have I?
Or have you? Let's just wait a minute. Oh, yeah. There you go. Reprimanded by Tim. Spoiler Master Baker. Let's carry on then, shall we? And see whether Becca rejoins us. I was stalling for a moment.
You might still get more points than me, even missing half the questions.
So we're going to run through the answers. Tonight, we just don't seem to be kind of gelling so much or working. So let's just give it a go, shall we, to give the answers. Question number 1. What is a chirocephalist? What have you got there, Tim? Anything?
I've put a lover of time, but I don't think that is quite right. Kairos isn't quite time, but it
no. I guess
like
if it was
the only Greek
chrono,
word
I guess. Yeah. Gold, lover of gold,
Oh.
and kind of jewelry and that kind of gold. Question number 2. What is Frodo's sword called?
Sting.
Indeed. I've got to mention that I don't know, where can I do it? Present.
That you own it, no?
Not quite. I went to the armories, and therefore,
Oh, yes.
Can you see that? Is that coming up there? No, it isn't. That's interesting. Oh yeah, there it is. There we go. I took a picture of that.
Oh wow!
So
it's in Leeds.
This is a copy, so it's never actually been on a film, but they made several copies. I've even got kind of other people's swords. I can't remember the names. So there we are.
It's wasted on you, isn't it?
A little bit. So question number 1 was, the answer was lover of gold. Question number 2 is Sting. Answer number 2 is Sting. Becca, do you want to rejoin us, or are you still working things through? Which UK county celebrates its day on 1st of October? Do we know that one?
No, I didn't know that one. It says let her in. She's on a guest account now.
Oh, hello.
You're in charge. There you go.
You're in charge now, Mark.
Fair enough.
Hello.
Hello there.
Did
Sorry
you
about
get,
that.
did you get Gold Lover and or Leeds? No, not Leeds. Sting. That's good.
I did. I got. What was the first one?
Gold Lover, which I did not.
Lover of gold.
I put lover of butterflies.
Oh, that's kind of nice. That's in chrysalis sort of. Yeah, I get what it means. Yeah. Tim proposes the formation of a company to journey to Leeds and free the Sting from the armory. Very good. The third one, the answer is Lincolnshire. Today is Lincolnshire Day.
Lincolnshire.
Jolly good.
I was like, why would Mark know that from? Well, it's going to either be Yorkshire or Lincolnshire.
Well, Yorkshire Day is the 1st of August, and Lincolnshire Day is the 1st of October, as we celebrate with our yellow belly in the house. So question number 4 is, on this day in 1982, Sony released what in Japan?
I've put the Dreamcast, but I don't believe that it is.
It was the first compact disc player. The first CD player.
CD player.
Yeah, I thought surprisingly early on. Do you know what I mean? I was quite surprised by that.
It's before I was born.
Yeah. Let's move on to question number 5. What are the world's only true flying mammals? I think Tim may have given this away.
So sorry. I think
it's all right. It is bats. So well done. Oh, Tom Osborne guessed the Walkman. Again, when I thought, when I read that kind of Sony had released something in the early 80s, that was genuinely where I went down that route of thinking, it must be the Walkman. But yeah, it's the CD player, which is just crazy in my mind.
When did they release the Walkman then?
Oh, somebody please Google that.
1642.
No, I spend so much of my time not Googling things on Faith and Geekery. It goes against all of my kind of natural inclinations.
So, yes, please do give us a shout out to how many points you got. Tim, Becca, what did you get?
Well, I went silent on by question number 3. So I got 2. 2 out of 3.
That's really good, actually.
Yeah, it is. I got 2 out of 5. I heard all the questions and didn't beat you.
Tim said 1979 for the Walkman in Japan. Wow, that's really early.
Cool.
Kind of, I imagine just because Yorkshire got that sort of technology 10 years later, 20 years later almost in some places. So I get that, especially a portable CD, I guess. Tom also got 2 out of 5.
Yeah, well done, Tom.
So it is just come to 8:30 on the stream, and it is now kind of time to come over to our conversation that Tim is bringing us about Lord of the Rings. Oh, Tim also got 4 out of 5. Walkman caught me out.
Wow.
Well done, Tim.
What a show off.
Blimey.
I want to know how he knew that was a lover of gold. Where has he picked up that piece of information?
Or did he Google it?
To be honest, I had ambitions about doing Lord of the Rings questions, but really subtle ones, and so I did try looking up like gold ring kind of enthusiasts and otherwise, and then I was like, oh, gold will do, kind of smaragdy sort of things, and then after question 2 I dried up.
And I was like, had a question about Lincolnshire, because that's what I know.
Yeah, absolutely. That was pretty much my thought process completely. It has been noted. So, Lord of the Rings, Tim, where would you like to start? What would you like to kind of embrace or avoid or otherwise? I've got to say, this is one of the first subjects where we've kind of mentioned it, and those in Discord, on our Discord server, started getting very excited about stuff. And so
they are
that was very good.
flexing their fingers as we speak.
Yeah.
Yes, I was frantically trying to read that whilst picking Martha up from my little daughter from Rainbows. I was in the Rainbows queue, fast scrolling through the Discord. So, bring me up to speed in the comments, folks. Lord of the Rings. I mean, where do you start? I guess in a weird way, the problem with Lord of the Rings is that it's just the tip of the iceberg, and I think that's probably been its kind of main like geeky attraction for me. From the very beginning was my introduction to Lord of the Rings comes from the age of 10, and my mum, Jill Baker, known to some, deciding that, getting to the point where she realised that like reading to her 10-year-old son was becoming uncool, and I was starting to drop out of reading before bedtime options, and so she opened Lord of the Rings and said, "I'll read you this." And safe to say, we were still doing bedtime story 2 years later, because she proceeded to read me the whole of the Lord of the Rings over the next 2 years before bedtime, and that was my kind of introduction and immersion into the world. I guess I'd already read The Hobbit, I think, even before that, but I think it's that tip of the iceberg thing that I think is what so excites me about Tolkien, because there's loads of great fantasy literature out there, but Tolkien really did spend his whole life building one world and building it so rich and so deep and so real. I think for him, like the world was where he escaped his post-war trauma. And so you can read Lord of the Rings and there's a throwaway line about some place that we maybe never go back to or hear from again, or there's a name of an elvish lord from the Second Age referred to, and actually in any other fantasy world, almost any other, that would just be a throwaway line, and if you ask the writer about that person, they'd say, I don't know, I was just, I needed some kind of textual ruin to refer back to. But Tolkien actually then went away and wrote the whole history of that person and how they fitted into the narrative. And I just think you can tell. I think you can tell the richness of his world is so
with language alone, can't you?
Yes.
And was this kind of all kind of his own kind of imagination, or are there like, Modo Raggins, his colleague from work, going, "Oh, I can't believe what he wrote about me." Again, not a good accent.
No, because they were all Oxford professors, and
yes,
yes. No, I'm not aware of any lawsuits from Modo. But no, I mean, I think Tolkien was very influenced, probably by three things, like his own absolute love of like ancient stories, so the really, really old stories, the old Norse myths, the old English tales that go back. Yeah, nice, Tom. I think that's the right time frame.
Yeah, Tom said first encounter The Hobbit at 8 or 9. I think The Lord of the Rings at 10. Yeah. Oh, and just whilst we're interrupted, Lord of the Ring films came out when I was in primary school and started reading them in year 4. That's Tim.
That's reminding me that he's younger than me. So the kind of really, really old story. So one of the first things he's published, which I think was something to do with his studies, his degree studies, is a long treatise about Beowulf, the ancient poem. And so a lot of what he's trying to do is sort of ground some really good myths in Englishness, and that's where the kind of Hobbit and stuff all comes from. So he's influenced by that, and then definitely influenced by his experience on the front, serving in the World War, and just kind of being traumatized by that, but then also trying to make sense of what war does to whole civilizations. And I think there's, Tom Shippey, who is probably the eminent Tolkien thinker and writer and historian of Tolkien the man, and his writings would say that, like, if there's one theme to Tolkien's writing, it is death. It is kind of understanding that war and death is destructive and raises lots of questions for us. And then I think his third influence was his close circle of friends. Was the kind of friends that he grew up with. Lots of tragedy in his own life. Lost his father really young, and his mother in his teenage years. Moved around all over the country. They were in all over the world. They were in South Africa, and then back to England, trying to make sense of being an Oxford Don, being shipped off to the front. I think all of that, like his close-knit circle of friends, was a big like carrier for him through those really traumatic early years. And so I think you get that as well. And anybody who's even watched a little bit of the Lord of the Rings films, you get that like fellowship stuff, don't you? You get real. Tolkien's really good at writing friendships, and I think most of the adaptations of his work understand that and understand that they have to get that. So you get, Legolas and Gimli, one who's 6'4" and glamorous, and the other who's 5'2" and anything but glamorous, and from two races who are supposed to hate each other, but who have. Tolkien has this way of just writing this beautiful friendship that expands beyond the story.
A redemptive relationship, isn't it?
Is there something also here about friendships where you suddenly kind of catch up with a friend and they've gone from being grey to being white? Is that oh, you're so old, look, you used to be the grey and now you're the white?
Yes, and something about like redemption in old age there too. Dear old Gandalf. We get stronger with age in some cases.
Yes.
So I think really fascinated by the richness of the world, and then just and so drawn in by that, and that like tickles the geekiness in any of us, I think, to be like, oh, let me go and find out a bit more about this niche character. But then I think probably just most sort of kept in by his ability to just sort of I guess just kind of speak into all time. There's a really wonderful bit at the start of Lord of the Rings where he's kind of ranting about, in his like what's the word for, it's not the prologue, but it's like his note, the author's note, I think. I can't remember what it's called. Tim Hannon will remember what it's called. He's talking about the forward. Yes, exactly. Thank you. About not talking about not being that interested in allegory. So in a way, sort of criticizing his mate C.S. Lewis, who effectively wrote a Christian allegory, and saying that's fine, but it requires the reader to It requires the author to do all the hard work.
Tim's just put, correct me if I'm wrong, didn't Tolkien ground the Middle-earth mythology within our world's own history, being something of a prehistory?
Yes, so the way John Garth was describing it in this lecture I watched the other day was that, like, it's not that Middle-earth is an imagined world, it's an imagined time in our world, which is a nice way of thinking about it, I think. What's Garth saying?
Yeah, and there's something about what the hobbits hold then. We've got all the kind of ambition of the men, or the old ambition of the elves, the violence of the orcs and Sauron and Saruman, and always woven through that. This is always my desperation when reading the books, was just waiting to get to the next moment where they're able to be at peace. Where you start off in the beautiful kind of home where all the hobbits are doing really mundane, peaceful things together, and they might have their little bickerings, but it keeps grounding you in that familiarity of the people on your street and the mundanity of life. And actually, that's where you want to get back to. But you know that you have to go on that journey with Frodo and Sam in order to get back to that, because otherwise that in itself, and it's almost the anti-pacifist argument for war, that if you want Hobbiton to be protected, you need to be willing to protect it and fight for it, or at least do something incredibly sacrificial, because Frodo doesn't fight, but he chooses a peaceful path that in the end ends the war.
But probably costs him everything, costs him the chance at peace at the end.
Yes.
And that's sacrificial in its own way. Yeah, and there was some good chat in the Discord that I was reading in the Rainbow's Queue about how, what I think one of the real tragedies of the film adaptations is that they miss off the bit at the end of Lord of the Rings, which
yes,
spoiler siren or whatever, when the hobbits get back to the Shire
got the buttons.
and have to do fixing, yes, thank you, and have to scourge the Shire, have to fix the Shire, because the evil has spread there too, and that the part of the problem with the films is that there's already about 7 endings, but Tolkien wrote an 8th, which Jackson chose not to show, and I think in a way that's almost part of that longing for peace that you talked about, Becca, is definitely there throughout the story, and it goes on almost even beyond the story.
I find that really fascinating, because I'd never really made that comparison with the war kind of ideas and of painting this kind of idea of what did the Shire, did you say Hobbiton, kind of really kind of represent in that kind of, initially Frodo wants to be on an adventure and get away and enjoy, but then actually becomes that place of where he wants to return back to, because actually he's seen the horrors of war and what this can play, and I think that's then even more contrasted the fact that when he returns, that it is in such a state, rather than it being this lovely idyllic place again, that actually it's that bittersweet, actually, well, there was a purpose for going to war, and it actually, there was a cost, not just in him, but also that lovely ideal had now gone, and it had to be re kind of created or rediscovered at the end of it.
I think really, it's like, I don't even think it's actually a fully accurate Tolkien line, but it's one of the best moments in the film, which was honoured by my lovely former colleagues at All We Can by this picture, which hangs just above me as I'm talking to you, which is the moment that Frodo turns to Sam and says, what are we fighting for? And he says that there's why do we keep going? And he says that there's some good in this world, Mr. Frodo, and it's worth fighting for. And I just think that is probably the whole of the Tolkien kind of legendarium, as we kind of tend to call his whole over of writing, summed up in one line, is just that and is the message that keeps me going so often, is that things can feel bleak, can't they? And thankfully most situations I face aren't anything like as bleak as the ones faced by some of the characters in Tolkien's various stories, but the characters we're most drawn to in the stories, the characters Tolkien draws most vividly, are the ones who are able to hold on to that belief in something good, in there being some hope, in something to do with light.
And that's all in the context of changing societies. You think that this is the end of the elves, the end of the reign of the elves. The elves are all going off to do the thing that they do in that far off country that isn't Aslan's country. What do they call it?
Yes, Aslan's country, I think.
Okay, so the elves are going to Aslan's country. I'm so sorry.
Oh, sorry, what do the elves call it?
Yes,
Valinor.
the elves call it. So and in comes essentially the reign of men, and that shift that in amidst it all, good can still continue. So, and you think, you see these and I could watch both movies on silent purely for the filmography of it, the beautiful serenity of what the ancient elf civilizations have built. And yet, if that's coming to an end, how can we believe that good continues if we need to move into a new era where new people are coming in with new voices and new things to say about it?
Yeah, I was actually just this morning. No, last night. Anyway, sometime in the last 24 hours, listening to a podcast which I'd recommend for the real Tolkien nerds out there. It's called The Prancing Pony, and they have, over the last 6 years, read bit at a time their way through Lord of the Rings and then reflected on it. And they've just got to the end. It was the end like 3 weeks ago, and so what they're now reading, or what they read on this episode, was an epilogue to the Lord of the Rings that Tolkien wrote that was never published, certainly in no edition of Lord of the Rings that I've ever seen. And I think eventually actually Tolkien just didn't actually want it published. But there's a beautiful moment in it in which Sam is talking to his now teenage daughter, Hobbit, saying something not unlike what you've just said there, Becca, which is that he's sort of recognizing that she has never seen the elves or Rivendell or the glorious sort of third age that we spend in our time in Lord of the Rings, where all these magical, wonderful people come and go and bless the land. And yet, he says, and yet that light shines on in you. And so it's this kind of moment of hope that as a father he has, that yes, the story of the Rings of Power might be finished, but the story of the light isn't going out. The light still goes on, and and that's that same impulse that there's still some good in the world and it's worth fighting for. And I think that's the invitation that Tolkien leaves to us as he sort of writes the end of this fictional history. He leaves us with just enough light to say, and now in your real history, will you not pick this up and run with it?
Because there is in Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe, in C.S. Lewis's allegorical world, there's a definite invitation that if only you would join Aslan's army, choose the right thing to do, follow the right path, then there will be this redemptive journey whereby you can enter into Aslan's country where it is realer than real life and everything will be hunky-dory. There isn't as obvious an invitation in Lord of the Rings. The invitation is come and experience rather than come and do and think and behave in a different way. Lord of the Rings invites you into that world. It was that fully researched escapism. So if that was allegory, or if that was the invitation, if you could pull that out in terms of a journey of faith, what would be the doing? What would be the, what do you do with that other than experience it? Or is the experience enough?
Lots to say there. I'm going to try and choose something rather than say 12 things at once. I think one of the things that comes across really beautifully in the film adaptations of Tolkien's work, which captures a real Tolkien theme, is about hope and that might connect back to that same idea of light that we were just talking about, but this real sense that what you do as you emerge out of Middle Earth in your real life is you hope, because Tolkien's so good at capturing that, and Gandalf particularly in the films captures some of those Tolkien lines. He says something about of course there was you should always hope, because despair is a fool's game. Despair is only available to those who have seen all ends. Effectively, that actually, if you know, only if you know it's going to go wrong, should you ever fall into the trap of despair. And so, almost hope by default is the position that that Gandalf takes in Lord of the Rings. And then there's a gorgeous line that Ian McKellen delivers so beautifully, where he just says, there never was much hope, just a fool's hope. And it's that fool's hope that is so kind of Christ-like, I guess, for me. The Bible talks, doesn't it, about being a bit a fool for Jesus, and I think there's a real sense of that same kind of impulse to just believe that maybe the most foolish, most outlandish, most crazy thing might just happen. That's the eucatastrophe that Tim mentioned before, which was Tolkien's invented word to be the opposite of catastrophe, which is that what if the something dramatic that happens in your life is actually incredible and wonderful, and it doesn't have to be utterly devastating. It could be utterly life-giving, and that's what happens when the eagles arrive in the middle of a fight and swoop you up and take you off. That's what happens when Gollum arrives just at the right moment to bite the ring off the finger, so that you end up and so Tolkien's able to say, that's not me trying to write a weird story in which wonderful things happen. Look around you and see that wonderful things happen every day. Yes, there's darkness, but there's also always light. So yeah, I think that's not the same as C.S. Lewis, and I think was it Tom that popped up and said that's probably why he prefers Middle Earth to Narnia, is that it's never kind of explained. Tolkien doesn't explain to us step by step how to get to Aslan's country or Valinor, but he does say, if you can leave this story and not be hopeful, then you haven't read it right. And I think that's sometimes that's all we need, isn't it, to keep going, to face another Tuesday, to get out of bed, to do the difficult thing, to make the awkward phone call. We just need a little bit more hope.
I guess it gives us permission, doesn't it? It gives us permission to be hopeful and find hope. Whereas, dare I say, C.S. Lewis is a bit more colour by numbers, and he leads. Well, do you know what I mean? It's still fantastic, but it kind of leads you to the water. He leads you to the point, rather than you can kind of go away with Tolkien to go, oh, actually, broadly speaking, this is the parallels that I can make personally as I kind of put this book down. I'm aware of time, and I just wondered if there was any moment to talk about. If you wanted to, we can still keep with just the source material. Whether you wanted to talk anything about the films specifically, or the Amazon kind of Rings of Power series, but I don't want anybody to kind of spoil bits in case if people haven't watched it or otherwise. Is there anything to say about those things?
Well, of course, you can't spoil something that was set in the Second Age, Mark, because this all happened already. We won't spoil the adaptations, but no, I think because the finale is on Thursday of this week, finale of series 2, it's worth mentioning those. I feel like we've talked a bit about the films. I love the Jackson films. They came out just the right time for me. I had my toenail removed the day before the Twin Towers film came out on DVD. So I was laid up for 4 weeks, unable to move. And I think I watched it every day for 4 weeks.
Wow.
Which is probably somewhere where the immersion became full geekery. So yes, I'd be interested in what folks have thought of the Rings of Power, because I've loved it for what it is, and I think as a Tolkien geek, just the opportunity to be in Middle Earth again, it be visually stunning and gorgeous, has been great fun, and I think perhaps relates to some of that conversation we were having earlier about cinematography and the change from big cinema to TV series. That is the difference from 2001 when the first Jackson film came out to now, is that you can make a TV series and it be at least as visually arresting as the films.
Yes.
I suppose where it makes me wince is when it plays too light with the source material, where it sort of tries so hard to make a in-joke or a callback instead of just being good at being what it is. And there's been a few of those. There's been a few times when they've used a particular line that actually is a line that's already in the film. Which, I think there was one particularly grating moment where Tom Bombadil quotes Gandalf effectively, and you're just like, but why? Like, what? Just say something else. Like, you're actually quite good writers, and some of the lines they've delivered have been beautiful. There's a stunning line last night. I watched it last night, but it's last week's episode. About light, capturing that whole sense of light being what pushes back darkness, not strength. Very Tolkien theme. Beautiful way of, like, lovely example of a screenwriter capturing the essence of Tolkien without needing to directly quote the Jackson films. So yes, I wish somebody had watched them all back to back and gone, why have we made so many references to things that people say? It's almost like at times it flirts with like the Monty Python approach to, like, if Monty Python did Lord of the Rings, they'd do this with it, and it's just like, why? But it's only frustrating because I'm actually enjoying it and fully immersed in the world.
I can't remember if I've asked this question on the stream before, but I found Tom Bombadil very interesting because his character, and I wrote it down, Rory Kinnear, the chap who plays him. I was trying to work out whether he was trying to do a West Country accent or whether he was purposely doing a bad West Country accent because he was referencing that sort of style but not wanting to directly use it. Do you know what I mean? Was it meant to be a West Country accent to the letter, or because it's fantasy, is it West Country like? And I didn't know whether it was just kind of his acting ability or if it was an intentional direction of the character. And I think that's where I got stuck on. And there's some of these kind of accents, I'm kind of going, well, are you trying to be this or this? And I think that's a wider question for like people on D&D podcasts and things like that, is, are you there trying to do kind of kind of an accent in these places, or is that going to offend people? And therefore, do you purposefully take a pinch of salt to it and twist it up a little bit?
I think Rory Kinnear's Bombadil is quite interesting because yes, it definitely ranges from anywhere between St Ives in Cornwall and Bath, if not slightly further north. But I think yes, and I think that was probably the D&D reference is a really helpful one. I think that was my reflection, was that it felt like a D&D accent. It felt like a sort of a good joke accent that works in a character. But Rory Kinnear is a really, really like well-established actor. Who's very good at his job. So I can't help but think it must have been a little bit deliberate. But
so we've got various comments. Sorry, I've run through them quite quickly. So Tom said Rory's doing Cornish like. Tim, but that's one of my slight gripes with Trop, as in the Rings of Power. Just the nods to things that haven't happened and that they seem to happen often, but that's just me. I greatly enjoyed the soul of being in Moria with Durin. Moria, sorry, the fourth.
Yes, absolutely.
And I am noting that the accent of our game, Tim. But I think we're nearly out of time. But I would say, and the reason why I've been so quiet during Lord of the Rings conversation tonight is that I started reading the books before the films were released, and I got bored of the expansive description of the Shire. And I've got all 3 volumes on the shelf, and I ran dry with it. I then went out with somebody who loved Lord of the Rings, and I went to the cinema to see the first one. And genuinely, this is the first time I've fallen asleep in the cinema. and I felt guilty for it, but I did watch all the rest of them, and I have enjoyed them, and I have enjoyed Rings of Power as well. But I was a bit like, I didn't enjoy it first time round. Both my brothers loved it, absolutely adored it. So that's why I've been falling quiet. We are kind of running out of time.
Would strongly recommend the Andy Serkis audible version of Lord of the Rings.
Fantastic!
If you want to re-engage with the whole original Tolkien.
And the original cartoon as well, which they never finished because they ran out of budget.
But I remember that. Yeah, I remember that first time round. Tim, I can heartily recommend Tolkien Dogmatics for those that want to dive a little more into theology and mythology of Tolkien. We're going to come to our geeky gallery because we are nearly. Oh, that's interesting.
Thanks for letting me talk about Tolkien so long.
No. It's an absolute pleasure. So we've got some pictures here. So Becca, at the very beginning, you're talking about your new equipment and otherwise. So you've got a new hedge trimmer. These are various pictures of grapes in abundance.
7 3/4 pints of grape juice I produced this weekend.
Wow.
It's
fantastic.
Ridiculous abundance. Yeah, I can't take any credit really. It was all
hobbity harvest, if ever I saw one.
Yes, it really was.
And you've been kind of using machine to juice the grapes.
Yes, that's a masticating juicer.
Fantastic.
And it kind of chews rather than grinds at full speed, so that you reduce the amount of heat that is introduced to the juice.
Yeah.
Equal levels of research went into the correct juicer. So that I've had for years.
Fantastic. Next things, Sutton's, is that Simon or Steve? I've forgotten now.
Steve Sutton.
So he's shown about his artwork and lovely kind of display. Well done on having an exhibition. There is also some these next two pictures are both kind of referencing autumn, so butternut squash and sweet potato made in a soup maker, and that's fantastic. Now it's the time, isn't it? The nights are drawing in, it's getting cold, and as Tom's put on here, it's definitely autumn now with his log fire lit. Absolutely. I guess you could curled up reading a Tolkien in front of a nice warm
gorgeous
log
artwork
fire.
as well above.
Oh yes, there's at least 6 on there, unless one's a mirror. I can't work out, but fantastic. And again, you can listen back to one of the podcasts from 2 weeks ago for views on that. There's a picture for mine. I've got the Royal Armouries in Leeds again. Another little plug there, and that's just the opening kind of area expanse of all the kind of muskets and guns and spears and armor. It was very interesting then chatting to our children about war and otherwise from it, but I did kind of encourage them to have their D&D mind on, to think about the various weapons that were in use here. Then I've got Gareth talking about his experience of the Northeast Board Games Expo and playing a game of Discoveries, and I think with helping his family out there. Then I forgot to mention earlier, but the geeky thing I've been into, there was Untitled Goose Game on the Switch, which is hilarious. It is, and I think it is an independent game release, I think from 2019, and you are literally geese. You can play 1 player or 2 player, and you just honk and you flap your wings and you wind up the local residents of this little town and the gardener, and it's just hilarious, so light-hearted. I got it, and then I kind of showed it to the kids, and the kids have just been blasting through it. It's three years up, they're 7 and 9, but they've absolutely adored it. It's just hilarious because they're just these little geese just waddle around and honk, and you wave the wings. So that's fantastic. Lydia shared about the Lego Church Creation Eco Fair, and she's made a little cow, or a wheelie good cow, because the legs have got wheels on. And a reference to what Tim had said about his Tolkien Dogmatics by Austin M. Freeman, and he's leading some staff devotions tomorrow with that. And I believe that is all of the Geeky Gallery. And we've got some last questions or last comments. Thomas put, outside of Middle Earth, Tolkien's letters from Father Christmas, including his own illustrations, are worth exploring too.
Yes, they are.
Tim, do we need a geeky book / podcast recommendations channel on Discord? Oh, I think that's definitely the case. And Gareth put a shameless plug for his Brothers Dice Stall. Absolutely.
Nice.
I've got a
Nice.
lot of time for people sharing about dice and creating dice. I've attempted making it resin style, and it is complicated and requires all the investment tools and all that kind of stuff. So if you've got the ability and means to do that, that's fantastic. I really feel as if there may be a topic about dice at some point, dice goblins, and about gameplay with dice as well. So we might have to have a look at that point. But yes, I do believe Discord would be good. I forgot the other thing to mention as well. I'm going to shout out to Dice Company and the Small Embers podcast, because that is something I've just upgraded to Sweetheart tier as a subscriber, because they are fantastic as a podcast. So I think we do need a book/podcast channel on our Discord. So I think that is it. Time has run away from us. And is there anything else left to say, folks, or otherwise? I'll take that quiet as a no. Well, I wanted to say thank you, Tim, for leading us through your passion and interests of Lord of the Rings and digging it a bit deeper. Thank you, folks, for comments. I'm sorry I've not been able to kind of run through all of them tonight. And thank you, folks, if you're watching, listening later, or playing catch up in whatever format. Do remember to follow us, like us, subscribe, and join the conversations outside of this place on our Discord channel as well. And Tim has just put, always follow your nose, as a final quote from Gandalf. So with that in mind, I'm going to say farewell, folks. Enjoy your reading, or whatever you kind of enjoy to wrap up warm during these autumn nights. So God bless and farewell.